Hey, this is Jonathan. What I call it attraction. I'm a dating and relationship expert specializing in helping you understand attraction. Okay, so real quick, guys, just want to talk about arguing with women. Now, this is one of the most idiotic things you could do as a man is to argue with a woman. The reason why it's idiotic because as I say all the time, men are logical creatures, right? Women are emotional creatures. So anytime you argue with a woman, she's never arguing from a logical standpoint. Now, can she think logically? Yes, but her very her very upfront normal filters that's upfront before everything else are emotional filters. So everything that she sees and receives goes through a filter that's from an emotional standpoint, not from the logical. Men are logical, so everything we receive, it comes from a logical standpoint. Now, do we act off emotions? Of course, but that's not the forefront for us. The forefront is logical, okay? So that's just how we were. The same way that God created man naturally masculine, dominant, he naturally created women feminine, submissive. It's the same thing there. You know, it's just our natural essence. So because women think naturally from an emotional standpoint, every argument is futile. You're always going to lose. You're always going to be in the wrong. Not because you didn't make your point or you're actually wrong about the topic that you're discussing, but because you're arguing with this woman and it's causing friction between you two, and she's ready to walk out your life and she's ready to leave you over this, and it's not because on your side of it, you're like, you know, I want to prove that, you know, my point, I want to prove she's wrong about this. You know, this isn't the right thing. I want to make sure she understands where I'm coming from and this is how I feel about it. It's not about any of that. On her side of the spectrum, she doesn't care that what you're saying is the correct thing or it's the true thing or it's the logical thing. All of that's out the window. What's taking place in her mind is the emotional aspect of it. So it's not what you're saying that she can't receive. It's how you said it and how it made her feel. Because sometimes it's not what we say, but how we say it. And then that's attached to, okay, now that you said it in this certain way, this makes me feel in this other kind of way. And that's what she's moving off of. So she's moving off these emotions on how whatever it is you said, how it made her feel, not the truth of the matter of that subject. And that this is how women operate. It's innate in them, you know. It's not a thing that's just on the surface. I talk about this all the time. This is one of those things that's just instinctively it's in her. She doesn't realize it, but it's deep down rooted in her. And so it comes out and she just knows, like, you know, this is how it is for me. You know, it's because of how you made her feel, you know. So it's never about the points, winning the points. It's never about, you know, any of that. So even when you win, you really lose. And that's why it's futile to argue with a woman. You should never argue with a woman. As a matter of fact, when you notice, not when you get into an argument, but because essentially this is what happens. When you argue with this woman, you're breaking your masculine frame. When you break your masculine frame, you start to become weak. She started losing respect for you, or at least in, maybe not overall, but at least in that moment, sees you in a weaker position because you're breaking your frame. Basically, someone can press your buttons and get you outside of your element to where you're arguing and, you know, cursing and you're doing all this, and you're supposed to be cool, calm, collect, assertive. That's the real high value male. But what happened is you're going off the rails and you're off the cuff and you're, you know, throwing stuff. That becomes emotional, and now that's a feminine trait. So now you're coming off as a woman would do. You're throwing things and you're yelling, and that's not a masculine trait to do those things. So you are started to be seen by her in a weaker position. So she sees you as weak, at least in that moment. You know, this is less of a man. A real man wouldn't do this. So to keep clear from this, guys, what you do is when you're in a discussion, and let's say you kind of have a feel for the discussion that is going to go south. I'm going to give you an example. Like one time my wife said, okay, well, I don't feel that you are really here for me like I need you to be. When this happens, you're not really there for me. And it bothered me. And not because I agree with her that I'm not there, but just because I know that I am. And it's like, wow, how could you say that? And it made me angry, you know? And so getting to an argument would be futile. Now I have before, but I realized that I'm losing masculine frame. I'm in a weaker position. Is working against me. So we don't want to go that route. What we do is, when I notice, if she says something like that to me, like, well, I feel that you're doing this, and I know for a fact that I'm really not doing that thing, but she feels that I am, just acknowledge how she feels about that. So you know what, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry because to you this is how you feel that what I'm doing. So I don't want to invalidate your feelings. You know, I can't stop you from feeling the way you're feeling. You know, if you feel that I'm doing this, let's compromise to where I don't do this anymore. You know, let's work this out. You know, I don't want to argue about it. When you know it's going to that point, it's not conceding, it's not just giving in, but what you're doing is, you know that you're gonna lose masculine frame, and you want to not do that by all costs, by all means. Yes, so by all means necessary, you do not want to argue at all. And so you're not giving in, you're not weak for, you know, saying sorry. What you're doing is you're eliminating the drama, you're eliminating the emotion behind it. You're saying, you know what? I know this isn't really what it is, but let's compromise, you know, because any other way I go about this, I'm going to lose masculine frame, and I'm going to be seen in a weak position, and I need to be unbothered by this. And another part that you should think about concerning this is that what she's stating something that's not reality. She's creating a false reality and trying to establish it as reality. But you know that's a false truth, and it's not real truth, it's not real reality. So since you know that, you're just saying, hey, you know, let's compromise. You know it's not real, so you're not going to give it any power, basically. Because, you know, by arguing or by pressing it, you're giving it power. You're saying, yeah, this is what I'm doing. Your actions and words are saying that. So you don't want to give it any power. You want to drop it on its head right then and there. And the way you do that is by realizing, well, what she's saying, this is a false illusion, but she's trying to establish it and create it to be a real entity when it's really not. So don't allow her to do that. Stop it on its head and just cut it right then and there. And that's how you and know that, okay, because if I go through with this, I'm going to lose my masculine frame. This is going to cause me to be in a weaker position. There's going to be a power shift. You know, the ball is going to be in her court. Guys, you don't want that. So this is what you do to keep from all those things happening. You know, never argue with a woman. There's always a way around it. Just plan, you know, set these boundaries, you know, plan ahead. Make sure you do not argue with a woman by all means necessary. If you like the content in this video, please like, subscribe, and share. And remember, love inspires, endures, uplifts, and bears all things.